The great space arena was silent at night. All the bright lights were off. Only a few small lamps glowed in the long, empty hall. The seats were empty, the fighting rings were cold, and the air was heavy with dust. Only one man was still inside. The human janitor moved slowly with his mop, cleaning the endless floor. He was old, tired, and invisible to most people. Nobody cared about a janitor. Nobody asked his name. To them, he was just the man who cleaned the mess after their shows. But tonight something was different. As he walked past the storage bays, he heard a sound. It was soft, like a whisper, almost like crying. He stopped, holding his mop tightly, and listened. The sound came again, two voices, small and scared. The janitor frowned and moved closer. Inside the dark storage bay, he found them. Two young alien twins, thin and weak, hiding behind broken crates. Their skin glowed faint blue in the dark, their eyes too large for their faces. They looked at him with fear, ready to run. The janitor raised his hand slowly, showing no harm. "It's all right," he whispered, his voice calm. "I won't hurt you." The twins stayed silent, shaking. Finally, one of them spoke, voice trembling. "Please, don't tell them we are here." The janitor looked around, making sure no guard was near. Then he crouched down. "Why are you here, little ones?" he asked softly. The twins lowered their heads. "They laugh at us," one said. "They say, we are too small, too weak, not real fighters," the other added. "They said we should leave, but we cannot. We want to prove ourselves." The janitor's heart ached. He knew what it was like to be ignored, laughed at, treated as nothing. Every day people walked past him, never seeing the man behind the mop. And now he saw the same pain in the eyes. Of these twins, he smiled gently. "Do you want to be fighters?" he asked. Both nodded quickly, their eyes shining with hope. "We want to join the Galactic Games," they said together. "But no one will train us. No one believes we can win." The janitor stood in silence for a moment. He looked at his mop, then back at the twins. He could walk away, pretend he never saw them, but something inside him refused. For the first time in years, he felt needed. "Then maybe," he said slowly, "you just need someone who believes." The twins blinked, not understanding. The janitor chuckled softly. "I may not be a fighter, but I know a thing or two about hard work." He lifted the mop like a staff, spinning it in his hands. "Maybe we can train right here in the dark." The twins gasped, their fear melting into excitement. "You would help us?" they asked. The janitor nodded. "As long as you keep it secret, we will train every night while the world sleeps." From that night on, the hidden training began. The janitor turned cleaning tools into practice weapons. Old crates became targets. Buckets became shields, and the wide, empty hall became their secret battlefield. The twins stumbled at first, their small bodies weak, their strikes soft. But the janitor encouraged them with every move. "Again," he said, "don't stop. Push harder. Believe in yourselves." Day after day, night after night, the twins grew stronger. They learned how to move quickly, how to dodge, how to strike with clever tricks instead of raw power. They laughed for the first time in months, their fear slowly fading. And the janitor felt alive again. His lonely nights now filled with purpose, but danger always walked near. One night, as they trained, the sound of heavy boots echoed in the hall. Guards were making their rounds. The janitor quickly pushed the twins behind crates. His heart raced. As the guards passed by, their flashlights sweeping across the floor. For a moment, the light stopped near the crates. The twins held their breath, shaking with terror. But then the guards moved on, laughing to each other, not noticing the hidden children. When the danger passed, the janitor let out a long sigh. The twins looked at him with wide eyes. "You risked yourself for us," one whispered. The janitor only smiled. "We are in this together." That night something changed. The twins no longer saw him as just a janitor. They saw him as their first friend, their first believer. And the janitor no longer felt invisible. He had found a secret worth fighting for. The galaxy outside still laughed at the alien twins. Nobody believed they could win. But deep in the shadows of the arena, hope had started to grow. And with every swing of the mop, with every step in the dark, a secret bond was born. A bond that would shake the galaxy one day. The nights inside the arena grew longer. Every evening when the lights went out and the crowds left, the janitor stayed behind with the alien twins. The world outside still laughed at them, but here, in the silent dark, they dreamed. The janitor taught them how to balance with broken sticks, how to use quick steps instead of heavy strikes. He made them run across the wide hall, dodge swinging mops, and fight shadows with their tiny fists. The tools were old, the training simple, but the twins never gave up. Each night they grew stronger. Each night their movements became sharper. One evening, after hours of practice, the janitor leaned against his mop, breathing heavy. "You are not weak," he said softly. "You are just different." The twins looked at him with bright eyes. "But everyone tells us we cannot join the games," one whispered. "They say we will embarrass our people," the other added. The janitor smiled, though his heart ached. "Dreams often begin in the darkness," he told them. "People may not see your light yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't there." The words stayed with the twins. They whispered them to each other at night as they lay hidden in the storage bay. For the first time, they dared to imagine victory, but the shadows around them were not safe. During one secret training, the sound of voices echoed from the hallway. Guards were making an early round, carrying bright scanners. The janitor quickly ordered the twins to hide behind crates. He stepped forward with his mop, acting as if he was only cleaning. Two guards walked in, their eyes sharp. "What are you doing here so late, human?" one asked. The janitor bowed his head. "Cleaning, sir. The floors must be ready for tomorrow." The guards looked around suspiciously, the light of their scanners sliding close to the crates. The twins held their breath, frozen in fear. For a moment, the janitor thought they would be discovered. But then one guard snorted. "Pathetic job," he muttered. "Better you than me." And they walked away, laughing. When the hall grew quiet again, the twins rushed to the janitor, their eyes wide with worry. "You protected us," one whispered. The janitor only gave a tired smile. "Then you must make the danger worth it," he said. "Train harder, fight smarter, make them regret ever doubting you." The twins nodded fiercely, their small hands clenched. From that day they pushed themselves even harder. They fell, they stumbled, they cried in pain, but they always stood again. The janitor's voice was always there, steady and calm. Again, little fighters, again. One night, after endless failures, something changed. The janitor set up an old training target made of wood and metal. He told the twins to strike together. Their bodies were tired, their arms weak, but they looked at each other and nodded. They shouted as they struck at the same time. The target cracked, then split in two, crashing loudly to the floor. For a moment, there was silence. The twins stared in shock. Then joy burst from their faces. "We did it!" they cried, their voices echoing through the empty arena. The janitor laughed for the first time in years. His chest felt light, as if hope had returned to him too, but the noise of the broken target carried far. Heavy footsteps began to sound. Again in the distance, the janitor quickly motioned for silence. The twins hid behind crates once more, their hearts racing. The guards entered, frowning at the fallen target. "What is this mess?" one growled. "Equipment falling apart again," the other said carelessly. They shook their heads and left, unaware of the truth hidden in the shadows. When it was safe, the twins crawled out, still smiling. "That was our first victory," one whispered. "Yes," the janitor said, pride warming his tired voice, "and the first of many." But deep inside, he knew the road ahead would be harder. The Galactic Games were coming closer, and sooner or later the twins would have to face the world. He looked at their hopeful faces and wondered, could he really prepare them for what was coming? The twins, however, felt no doubt. For the first time, they believed in their own strength. They dreamed of the games, of standing in front of thousands, of proving the galaxy wrong. They dreamed of lifting the trophy, of showing everyone that even the smallest could rise. And in the quiet darkness of the arena, their dreams burned bright. Nobody believed in them. Nobody except the janitor. And in that hidden place, a plan began to grow. A plan that would take them from the shadows to the center of the galaxy. But danger was closer than they knew, for not everyone wanted the twins to rise. And soon, the first trial would come. The day of the trials finally came. The great arena shone with blinding lights, banners waving high and thousands of voices filling the air. Aliens of every shape and size stood ready to fight, their armor polished, their weapons sharp. They came from different worlds, each one stronger, taller, and more dangerous than the twins. Far away in the shadows of the arena, the janitor stood quietly with the alien twins. His heart pounded as he looked at their small, thin bodies dressed in simple clothes, no armor, no grand weapon. "Remember," he whispered, "speed, not strength. Brains, not muscle. Stay together." The twins nodded, fear and excitement burning in their wide eyes. When their names were called, the crowd burst into cruel laughter. "Look at them," someone shouted. "Children pretending to be fighters. They will fall in seconds," another voice laughed. The sound of mockery rolled through the arena like a storm, but the twins walked forward, holding their heads high. The janitor clenched his fists, whispering under his breath, "Show them who you are." The trial began. The first challenge was the maze of blades, a giant arena filled with moving walls, swinging axes, and sharp traps hidden in the floor. The other fighters charged in, their strong bodies smashing through obstacles, their heavy armor clanging. Loud, the crowd cheered for them, but no one cheered for the twins. The twins looked at each other, their faces pale. Then they remembered the janitor's words. Not strength, but speed. Not muscle, but mind. They darted forward, their small bodies slipping through narrow spaces where the larger fighters got stuck. Blades swung down, missing them by inches. Walls shifted, but they slid through gaps too small for others. The crowd gasped as the twins began to move ahead. The laughter slowly faded into silence. One massive alien tried to crush them under his weight, but the twins split apart, darting in opposite directions. The alien stumbled into a trap, the floor opening beneath him, swallowing him whole. The crowd roared in shock. The janitor smiled from the shadows, his heart racing, step by step. The twins made it deeper into the maze. They jumped, rolled, and crawled under deadly traps, their movements fast and clever. For every mistake, they remembered their training, the long nights with the janitor's mop swinging at them. When they finally reached the exit, the crowd erupted, some in disbelief, some in reluctant cheers. The twins had survived the first trial, but it was not over. The next test began immediately. The Tower of Force, a tall pillar that fighters had to climb while defending themselves against falling stones and swinging chains. Strong aliens began their climb, muscles bulging, pulling themselves up with pure power. The twins looked at each other, fear flickering in their eyes. They were small, their arms weak. How could they climb such a thing? The janitor's words echoed again. Use your mind. Use your speed. Together, the twins searched quickly. They noticed the falling stones always hit the same paths. The chains swung in rhythm. Instead of rushing, they waited, counting silently. Then they climbed, slipping between stones, avoiding chains, moving like water. Where others were knocked down, the twins climbed higher, step by step. The crowd began to murmur, "Impossible. How are they still in this?" "Maybe it's luck," someone said, but the janitor shook his head. "It's not luck," he whispered. "It's belief." At last, the twins reached the top of the tower, their hands shaking, their breath heavy. They raised their arms, and for the first time, the crowd did not laugh. Some even clapped, though many still looked angry or doubtful. The announcer's voice boomed. The alien twins survived the first trial. The crowd's roar filled the arena. Half cheers, half jeers. The twins looked down, searching through the sea of faces until they found the janitor in the shadows. He gave them a small nod, pride shining in his tired eyes. The twins smiled, their hearts racing with joy. But deep inside they knew this was only the beginning. If the first trial was so dangerous, what would the next ones be? And in the council chamber above, powerful figures whispered to one another. "This is trouble," one said. "If they keep winning, it will challenge everything. We cannot allow them to continue," another hissed. Plans began to form. In the darkness, unseen by the crowd, unseen by the janitor, unseen by the twins. For now they had won. For now hope burned bright. But the shadows of betrayal were already moving, and the road to the next trial would not be safe. The arena was different now. No longer did the whole crowd laugh when the twins entered. Some still mocked, yes, but others leaned forward with curiosity. They had survived the first trial, and that alone was more than anyone had expected. The janitor stood in the shadows, as always, mop in hand, his eyes never leaving them. He felt pride rising inside him, but also fear. The next challenges would not be games, they would be battles, and the galaxy was watching. The twins trained harder than ever. At night, when the arena was empty, the janitor set up harder drills. He threw buckets of sand at them, forcing them to dodge. He swung broken pipes like heavy weapons, making them block and counter. He even tied old ropes across the floor so they had to jump and twist like dancers. The twins laughed, they stumbled, they grew stronger. And through it all, the janitor's voice guided them. Not strength, but speed, he reminded. Not anger, but focus. But shadows moved against them. Inside the high chambers of the council, powerful beings gathered. They should not be allowed to continue, one alien snarled. They are too small, too weak, and not worthy of victory, another said coldly. And yet they survived the first trial. If they keep going, the people may see them as a symbol. We cannot allow that, the leader hissed. So plans were made, whispers carried into the dark. The twins' path would not only be hard, it would be sabotaged. The second trial was announced. The arena of beasts. The fighters would face creatures from across the galaxy, each more deadly than the last. The crowd filled the stands, roaring with excitement. The twins stepped forward, trembling but determined. The janitor gripped his mop tightly from the shadows, his heart beating fast. The gate opened, and a monstrous beast emerged. Its body was covered in spikes, its eyes burning red, its roar shaking. The walls? The crowd cheered. Certain the twins would be crushed. The beast charged, claws tearing the floor. The twins split apart, running in opposite directions. The creature slammed down between them, missing by inches. Together, the janitor whispered under his breath. The twins circled the beast, their small size saving them again. They darted between its legs, struck at weak points, then rolled away. The beast roared in fury, smashing at the ground. But the twins were too fast. Finally, with a sharp strike to its leg, the monster stumbled. Collapsing to the floor, the crowd gasped, then exploded with cheers, but the trial was not over. The gate opened again, this time releasing two beasts. The twins froze, their breaths heavy. One beast was fast and thin, the other slow but massive. The crowd laughed again, thinking it was impossible. The janitor's voice whispered in their memories. Don't fight their strength, fight their weakness. The twins moved, dodging the fast one, leading it toward the massive beast. The two monsters clashed against each other, growling and striking. The arena shook with chaos. The twins darted in and out, striking when the beasts were distracted. Finally, after a long struggle, both creatures fell. The arena roared with disbelief. The announcer's voice rang out. The alien twins survived the arena of beasts. The twins stood, panting, their small chests heaving. They raised their arms, and this time, even more people cheered. The laughter of mockery had grown weaker, replaced by something new. Hope from the shadows. The janitor smiled, pride shining in his tired eyes. But as he turned, he noticed something. One of the guards watching him closely. The guard's eyes narrowed, suspicious. The janitor looked away quickly, pretending to mop, but he knew someone was starting to notice. Their secret training might not stay secret for long. That night, as the twins returned to their hidden corner, one of them whispered, "We did it. We are winning." The other smiled, but their smile was tired. "Do you think they will ever truly believe in us?" The janitor crouched down, his voice steady. "They don't have to believe now," he said. "They only have to watch, because soon they will have no choice." The twins nodded, their eyes glowing with quiet fire. But outside their small circle of trust, shadows thickened. The council's plans were moving faster. Whispers of sabotage, whispers of betrayal, and somewhere in the dark an assassin sharpened his blade, waiting for the perfect moment. For now, the galaxy saw hope. But hope always draws enemies, and the road to the next trial would test more than strength or speed. It would test loyalty, and it would test survival. The twins had become more than whispers. They had become a spark in the galaxy, a light many tried to ignore but could no longer deny. Each trial they passed made the crowds louder, the cheers stronger. Yet in the high chambers of the council, anger grew darker. "They are changing the games," one counselor hissed. "The people love them, and that is dangerous." Another agreed. "If the weak can win, what does that say about us?" The leader's voice cut through the room like ice. They must not reach the final stage. Plans were made in secret. Gold passed into the hands of traitors, and an assassin was sent into the shadows. The janitor, still only seen as a ghost in the arena, felt the danger before it came. He noticed whispers between guards, saw their eyes following the twins too closely. He tried to keep the twins hidden after training, moving them from one storage bay to another, but the galaxy was wide, and shadows could always find a way. One night, after a long practice, the twins returned to their corner to rest. The janitor left for a moment to fetch water. When he returned, his heart froze. The crates were broken, the air smelled of smoke, and the twins were gone. He dropped his bucket and ran through the empty halls. His footsteps echoed like thunder, his chest burning with fear. At last he found them, the twins cornered by a tall figure dressed in black, a blade glowing in his hand. The assassin stepped forward, his eyes cold. "You are not meant to win," he hissed. "You will not shame the council." The twins trembled, standing close together. But before the assassin struck, the janitor rushed forward. He swung his mop with all his strength, the metal handle smashing against the assassin's arm. The blade clattered to the ground, sparks flying. The assassin snarled, turning to face the janitor. "You?" he spat. "A human janitor dares stand in my way?" The janitor raised the mop again, his hands shaking. "I may be just a janitor," he said, his voice steady, "but I believe in them, and that is enough." The fight was quick, brutal. The assassin was faster, stronger, trained to kill. The janitor blocked and swung, buying precious seconds. The twins cried out, wanting to help, but too scared to move. The assassin struck him down with a heavy blow, the janitor falling to his knees, blood on his lips. The blade rose for the final strike, but the twins screamed. Their small bodies moved without fear, grabbing the broken crates around them. They hurled pieces of wood and metal, distracting the assassin. Together they charged. Knocking him off balance, the janitor used his last strength to shove the assassin back. The man stumbled into the shadows, hissing with rage. "This is not the end," he spat before disappearing into the night. Silence filled the hall, broken only by the twins' sobs. They dropped to their knees beside the janitor. "You saved us," one whispered. "You risked your life for us," the other cried. The janitor coughed, his face pale. "I promised," he said weakly. "I would never let you fight alone." The twins held his hands, tears shining in their glowing eyes. "We will not give up," they said together. "We will fight for you, not just for us." That night, the janitor carried himself with their help to the hidden medbay. He patched his wounds in silence, pain burning through his body, but his heart was stronger than ever. He had seen their courage, their fire. They were no longer just children in his eyes, they were fighters. And they were ready. The news of the attack never reached the crowd. The council covered it up, whispering lies that nothing had happened. But the janitor knew the truth. The galaxy was not only watching, it was fighting against them. And now, every step forward would carry the weight of betrayal. Yet hope still lived. The twins trained harder, fiercer, sharper, not for glory, not for fame, but for the human who had stood between them and death. When they looked at him, they no longer saw a janitor. They saw their protector, their teacher, their only family. The arena's next challenge loomed closer. Bigger, harder, deadlier. The crowd was hungry for blood. The council was hungry for failure. But the twins' hearts were no longer afraid, because they carried the janitor's sacrifice inside them. And in the shadows of the arena, where betrayal still moved like smoke, the bond between them had become unbreakable. The galaxy did not believe they could survive. The council did not believe they should survive. But the janitor and the twins had already made a promise together they would fight, and one day, the galaxy would be forced to listen. The day of the final contest arrived. The Galactic Games had tested hundreds of fighters, and most had fallen. Only a few remained, and among them stood the smallest, the weakest in appearance, the alien twins. The crowd filled the arena louder than ever before. Some cheered with wild hope. Others shouted with anger. But no one was silent. Everyone was watching. The janitor stood hidden in the shadows, his hands shaking. He had guided them through every trial, but this one was different. This was the final game, the battle that would decide who the galaxy would honor. The council had done everything to stop the twins, yet still they stood, scarred but unbroken. The announcer's voice boomed. Final game. Last fighters standing will take the crown of champions. The gates opened and enemies stepped out. A towering beast man with armor thick as stone. A serpent fighter who slithered with deadly speed. And two giant warlords, their weapons glowing with fire. The crowd roared, already certain the twins would not last a minute. The twins exchanged a look. They remembered the janitor's words again and again. Not strength, but speed. Not anger, but focus. And most of all, stay together. The horn blew, and chaos exploded. The beastman charged, swinging his heavy blade. The twins rolled aside, the ground cracking where the blade struck. The serpent lunged, its fangs flashing, but the twins leapt in opposite directions. Their small size made them slippery, untouchable for now. The janitor's heart pounded as he whispered from the shadows, "Keep moving, don't stop!" The twins danced around the fighters, darting in and out. They struck quick, never staying in one place long enough to be trapped. The crowd gasped as the beastman swung too wide, smashing into the serpent. The two giant warlords roared, swinging their burning weapons, but only struck each other, sparks flying. The twins were not stronger, but they were clever. They led their enemies into their own mistakes. The crowd began to cheer louder now, cheers that grew each time the twins survived another deadly blow. But the council was not silent. From their high seats they watched with cold eyes. "This is unacceptable," one hissed. "They are making fools of us." The leader leaned forward, whispering to a guard, "End it, one way or another." In the arena, the warlords cornered the twins. The serpent blocked their escape. The beastman raised his blade. The end seemed near. But then the twins remembered the nights of training, the janitor swinging ropes, throwing buckets, forcing them to think, and they acted. The first twin darted low, striking the serpent's tail. The second leapt high, landing on the beastman's back. The warlords swung but hit each other instead, their glowing weapons sparking in fury. The serpent screamed, crashing into the beastman. The arena shook as giants stumbled and fell. The crowd exploded into roars of disbelief. The twins had turned the impossible into chaos. The janitor's chest filled with pride, tears stinging his eyes. But then, the sabotage came. A hidden gate opened, and from it emerged a monstrous machine. It was not part of the game. Its body was steel, its arms sharp like blades, its eyes burning with red fire. The crowd gasped in confusion, but the council said nothing, pretending this was part of the plan. The twins froze in terror. This was no fighter. It was a weapon built to kill. The machine charged faster than anything before. The twins barely rolled aside as the floor split under its strike. The janitor's hands trembled, his voice breaking. "No. This is wrong." He grabbed a broken comm device hidden in his pocket. Through the crackling signal, his voice reached the twins. "Listen to me. You cannot fight it head-on. Use the arena. Make it your weapon." The twins looked at each other, trust unspoken. They ran, leading the machine across the arena, Every time it struck, they dodged, letting its blows smash walls and pillars. The ground shook, the walls cracked, dust filled the air. The crowd screamed in both fear and awe. Finally, the twins led it near the fire pits. Together they jumped aside as the machine charged blindly. It stumbled, its heavy body falling into the flames. Sparks exploded, fire roared, and the machine collapsed in a shower of smoke. The arena fell silent. Then, slowly, cheers began to rise, first soft, then louder, then deafening. The people stood, shouting, screaming, calling the twins' names. The announcer's voice thundered, "By victory over all others, and by survival against the impossible, the alien twins are the champions of the games." The crowd roared so loud it shook the arena. The twins raised their arms, trembling, tears on their faces, and then they pointed. Pointed not to the council, not to themselves, but to the shadows, to the janitor. The crowd turned, following their gesture. The janitor stood frozen, mop in hand, his old clothes dirty, his eyes wide. For the first time, the galaxy truly saw him, the man who had believed when no one else did. Tears filled his eyes as the crowd cheered for them. And for him, the twins shouted, voices breaking. He believed when no one else did. The galaxy had changed, hope had won. But in the dark corners of the council chamber, hatred burned hotter, and the story was not yet over. The arena still shook with cheers. The crowd's voices rose like thunder, calling out for the twins. Alien faces from dozens of worlds, once filled with laughter and mockery, were now filled with awe. Nobody had believed in the alien twins. Nobody, except the human janitor who had trained them in the shadows. The twins stood tall, though their bodies trembled with exhaustion. They had faced monsters, warriors, traps, even a machine built to kill. And yet, they were the ones left standing. The announcer's voice declared them champions, and the galaxy could no longer deny it. In the shadows, the janitor stood frozen. He never wanted glory, never wanted attention, but now thousands of eyes turned toward him. The twins' hands still pointed at him, their voices crying out, "He believed in us when no one else did." The crowd erupted again, louder, fiercer. For the first time, cheers rose not just for the winners, but for the one who had lifted them from nothing. The janitor's heart swelled, tears shining in his tired eyes. For years he had been invisible, nothing more than a shadow sweeping floors. Now the galaxy saw him, and for a moment he felt alive. But above, in the council chamber, faces were hard with rage. "They have ruined the games," one counselor spat. "They are a threat," another hissed. "If weakness can triumph, what power do we hold?" The leader's voice was like stone. "We will not let them leave this arena as heroes." Guards moved through the halls, orders whispered in their ears. The janitor saw them and knew danger was not gone. Betrayal still followed them like a shadow. He rushed toward the twins, pushing through the cheering crowd. The twins saw him and ran into his arms, their small bodies shaking with joy. "We did it," they cried, their voices breaking. "We are champions." The janitor held them close, his voice heavy with pride. "Yes," he whispered, "you are champions, but we must be careful." The crowd wanted celebration, but the council wanted silence. Suddenly, the lights above flickered. The sound of heavy boots echoed from the tunnels. Guards surrounded the arena, weapons in hand. The cheering turned into confused murmurs. "What is happening?" Voices called. The announcer's voice stuttered, unsure what to say. The janitor stepped forward, standing in front of the twins. He raised his arms, his voice loud and clear. "They fought with honor. They fought with courage. And they won. Fairly." The crowd shouted in agreement, voices rising in support. But the guards did not lower their weapons. The council leader's voice rang through the speakers, cold and sharp. "These twins are a mistake. Their victory is void." Boos and cries of anger rolled through the crowd. "No." Voices roared. "They won." Others screamed. The arena shook with protest. The janitor looked at the twins, his eyes steady. "This is your moment," he whispered. "Do not let them take it." The twins nodded, stepping forward together. Their small hands rose, their voices clear and strong. "We are champions," they shouted. and no council can erase it. The crowd erupted, louder than ever. The guards hesitated, unsure against the rising fury of thousands. The leader shouted orders, but the sound was drowned out by the roar of the people. The galaxy had chosen, and the galaxy chose the twins. At last the guards lowered their weapons, fear in their eyes. The council, furious but powerless, faded into the shadows. The janitor stood beside the twins as the crowd lifted their names high. Victory was no longer just theirs. It belonged to everyone who had ever been ignored, mocked, or told they were too small to matter. When the noise finally began to fade, the twins turned to the janitor. Their eyes shone with tears, their voices trembling. "We could not have done this without you." The janitor smiled softly, his hands resting on their shoulders. "You were always strong," he said. "I only helped you see it." The arena lights dimmed. The celebration continued into the night. But in the quiet of the shadows, the janitor knew this was more than just a victory. The galaxy had witnessed something it could not forget, a lesson carved into the stars themselves. That hope could rise from the smallest hearts, that even the weak could stand against the impossible. That belief, even from one forgotten janitor, could change everything. The twins walked beside him, no longer afraid, no longer hidden, champions of the games, but more than that, symbols of a new future. And as they stepped into the unknown together, the janitor whispered to himself, "Maybe I was never invisible after all." Nobody had believed the alien twins could win. Nobody except the human janitor who stayed late to help. And in the end, that was all they had needed.